Please state your name, the office you are seeking, and then answer the following question. What do you think are the most important solutions at the local level to address sea level rise and flooding? Starting with you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, off to the races. Test. Here we go. Yes, David Mayo, running for the office of mayor. And so very excited to be here, and thank you for hosting this. The question was, what can we do on the local level to address storm sea level rise? So I think the first step is, number one, is to recognize that it's happening, and not to be ignorant and put our heads in the sand that it is not happening. So I think awareness of that is key, because if you don't understand and agree that there is an issue with that, then you're going to have a hard time making a priority to address the needs for it. So that's step one. Step two is, I would say, just assemble some of the brightest minds that are already dealing with this, particularly in Miami Beach, where they are assembled a committee and have done wonders in terms of raising capital to address the stormwater sea level rise that's affecting already Miami Beach. And so we can learn a lot from the people that are already doing it smartly, and let's just model. We don't have to reinvent the wheels. There's technologies and information out there, and we just need to get on board with what's going on, the reality of what's happening. And let's get I would send myself and our public works and whoever else, that we can get a committee down to Miami Beach in particular and learn what's going on there, so we don't get caught behind here in Pensacola.
Hey, my name is Buchanan. I'm running for mayor, along with all the fine gentlemen up here. So first, like everyone's pretty much said, we need to acknowledge that climate change is real, sea level rise is real, and it affects us because we're on the coast, right? And we have to also acknowledge that man plays some part in it, and many would say a large part. So the science is done, and you can't say you don't believe it, because that's just not something you can do. The science is there. But beyond that, what can we do on a local level? We can do a lot, and a lot of it's symbolic, a lot of it's tangible. You know, one thing I want to do is make the city of Pensacola 100% run on renewable energy by 2030. 180 other mayors in the country have acknowledged this. So while we can't do it on a national stage due to some difficulties right now, we can act as mayors who are making a huge difference in America right now and set the stage for leading by example. So I want to power our city hall by solar, by wind, and I'm going to announce that. I announced it with my campaign, and I'm going to start on day one by acknowledging that. Other than that, we can do a lot of things, whether it's something as small as the Skip the Straw initiative, by starting on a local individual level, all the way up to renewables, all the way to recycling. We have a state statute in Florida that says we have to be 75% recyclables by 2020. The city of Pensacola and Escambia County, we're not quite there yet. We got 2 years to do it. So it's important we recycle. Thankfully, we're doing that again. And it's important we expand our operations in the city of Pensacola.
Hi, Grlver. Is this better?
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Hi, I'm Grlver Robinson, running for Pensacola mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. A little bit about it. I think today every candidate will promise you what's going to happen, but there are very few candidates up here who've actually accomplished things in true restoration for our environment, real solutions toward the goals we all see. For 12 years, I've worked very hard, participating side by side with you to promote better policies and, more importantly, actions for environmental restoration. I served on the task force that got curbside recycling here. I was the primary champion for the most successful renewable energy program from the Southern Company's system. We've done buildings, and we have the largest green roof that I also championed to show those things going forward. I have experience with stormwater policies and procedures in dealing with the sector plan, and also have expanded our creekside protection. I promoted natural shorelines and encouraged and discouraged hardening. We've instituted light ordinance and LED ordinance at the beach. We've done Carpenter's Creek. We've done Restore. There are a number of things there. When you think about the future of our community and the actions needed to sustain its environmental restoration, I'm the only candidate that has demonstrated the effort and the actions needed. So please vote Grlver Robinson for mayor on August 28th. Thank you.
Well, we're allowed to share. First of all, I'm Lawrence Powell, veteran of this great country of ours and a product of this great city of ours. And just thank you all for putting this together for us that we might just entertain ideas. But to the question, and I want to apologize, I may have to cut out at 7:10 at the latest because I got another commitment at 7:30. I thought we were going to be starting the marriage at 6:20. But I think there's some integrated things that we can do as it relates to the rising of the sea. And one is that we have got to acknowledge it. And I think there's some gain to be had when we understand that that can be both natural causes and also man-made causes. For example, as we build our new dwellings and condos, we got to ensure that we're doing that in compliance with code as it relates to the elevation and as it relates to the landscaping and all of those kinds of things that can cause drainage problems, not only on the system, but drainage problems to your neighbor if that is not properly done. And then I think we got to just be creative in our solutions and consider both natural sources of drainage control, whether it be seashells, or whether it be some of the other natural causes or materials, if you would, that we can use in our development process. And I think the more we can integrate that on all municipality fronts, county and city, we can ensure that we've got an integrated plan going forward.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Green, and to deal with the issues of rising sea levels and flooding, we definitely have to be honest about that. The thing is, with our carbon emissions, there are glaciers that are melting. Melting glaciers cause more water to go into the sea. That sea level then rises, and that's just part of it. And the human factor is a large factor into that. So part of my campaign from when I entered into this race, I did dedicate being able to make Pensacola go green, so to speak, through solar energy. Because if we can put solar panels on every city building that we own and properties that we own, but not also that, just to incentivize our residents to be able to place solar panels on their individual residences, and that can save a utility bill, which in turn gives more discretionary income, which in turn allows for more money to be spent to go into the loss fund, local option sales tax. But also within that, having community gardens. But the thing is, we have to realize that the water's rising and being contaminated, polluted waters, if we don't clean our waters, then our food will be contaminated, because that is what is needed to grow food. But if we're going to have community gardens, we have to make sure we implement the right resources to be able to do so, and that's what I stand for J Green 2018. Thank you.
Okay, all right, here we go. First question. I'm going to start with Mr. Green and come back this way, just because everybody will be in the middle, you kind of, yeah, that's okay. You do a good job. All right, here we go. The City Council's Climate Adaptation and Mitigation Task Force will issue its final report and recommendations this fall. The task force is likely to recommend that the city set goals for transitioning city operations to 100% renewable energy for its electricity. Would you support such a step? And if so, how would you implement it?
So most definitely I would support a step to go completely renewable resources. That goes into what I was saying earlier. So if we have the opportunity to utilize the resources that we have in this very city, wind, solar, and water, we are able to utilize those resources to the point where we're eliminating the pollution that goes into the atmosphere, and also we're going to be more economically independent. And being more economically independent will come from spending more upfront, so that way you save even more on the back end. And that will be done because those policies and procedures that are implemented will allow us to have proper policies to be able to develop our community and have the resources that we need to be viable as well as being able to cut costs in other areas. Thank you.
Donna, I am all in for renewable energy usage, but not necessarily to the degree of 100%, because I think that sets us up for potential failure in the event that process begins to falter in any kind of way. I'm more for giving it some thought as far as what the right blend of that would be, moving toward a majority use of renewable energy. And we have to also consider the impact on our currently existing economy, businessmen and women that are in that field of producing energy. So to unilaterally do that with the intent of a 100% direction, I think we would do some of our business entities some injustice. And we just got to be very conscious about how we do that and invoke the bright minds that are involved in all aspects of that we might move toward the right future.
Thank you. I have read I haven't had a chance to see climate change and had a chance to read it. It certainly has some very good parts, but the devil's going to be certainly in the details. And I think that was one of the challenges, that you got to make sure the cost of what's going to be energy is certainly something that's affordable as we look at what we're going to be doing and how we do it. Part of that is implementing strategically over time and what we end up doing. As I said before, one of the things I take great pride in is that I was one of the primary champions behind the most successful renewable energy program in Southern Company's system, which is the landfill energy program at the Buell landfill. Right now we're powering 1,200 homes and we're generating $800,000 annually for Escambia County. There are more opportunities like that out there for us to look at. It certainly as solar becomes better in the transition of what it does, but certainly we have a lot of rain. Wind, we have wind from time to time, but we don't have it all the time. So the consistency in what we do, I think it's going to be a constant look in stages about how we can make improvement over time.
So time's up. We can't not say we can't do 100% renewable energy. We should have done this 20 years ago. We don't know if we're past the point of no return when it comes to our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Will they have an earth that is sustainable? We don't know that. So we need to act now. And yes, I've already committed to making the city 100% renewable by 2030. And you know what? It's not that hard to do. We've already started doing it with our compressed natural gas program with Pensacola Energy. We have a fleet of vehicles that run on that. So while it's not renewable, it's one step forward. And for the cost of less than what we're paying right now to resurface tennis courts in Pensacola, we could put the entire city hall on 100% renewable. And you know what? In 10 years, it would pay for itself, and you get money back to you. So not only is it good for the environment, which is fantastic, it makes good business sense. And we can have jobs that are generated here locally, not in coal plants or not in power plants out of state. And they have jobs here, and we create a clean energy economy. And that's critically important in Pensacola.
A lot of us enjoyed a beautiful sunrise this morning, and I'd like to go ahead and give Grlver credit for that and thank him for that sunrise. So good job there. Just joking there, but absolutely, the answer is yes. Absolutely, and City Hall should take the lead, should be the example for our citizens in our city. To be renewable in our actions and what the hybrid cars, all the city vehicles, I think we should absolutely take the lead, not just from a policy standpoint, but from our city staff in terms of being the leaders, in terms of our personal responsibility on the economy and the environment. So absolutely, let's take the lead at City Hall, and the employees of city staff be examples of wise stewards of our resources. And so absolutely proceed 100% on that.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be our last question to each of you, and then we're going into questions from the audience, okay? So let's just be a little fun here. Drew, I'm going to start with you, go down this way, and David, you'll be the last. You were the last now anyway, weren't you? Well, wait a minute, let's do it the other way. Drew, you start, David, and then we'll go to Grlver, since he's the middle, and then, okay, we'll just be a little creative here. This is your last question from us. Okay, here we go. According to the National Climate Assessment, The heaviest rainstorms have increased in volume by 27% in the southeast due to a warmer atmosphere. For perspective, that means a 10-inch rainfall has become nearly a 13-inch rainfall. What kinds of solutions do you favor for this rainfall-related flooding in Pensacola?
Sure, so when I bought my house in Pensacola in 2014, I bought a century-old shotgun house, which, by the way, recycling is good for recycling old houses. That's also good. But beyond that, we need to make sure that we hold developers and we hold City Hall responsible. So if we're in a floodplain, which we have plenty of downtown, and we know it will flood, we need to make sure we do not allow development, or if we do, that it's set to standards that you can't build on. So thankfully, I looked at a topo map when I bought my house and said, all right, it's been there 100 years, it's good to go. But right now, we have a problem with the county, and even upward north of that, where there's water coming down from sprawling neighborhoods and flooding our downtown, and flooding residents that have been there for 60, 70, 80 years. And that's a problem. So we need to continue on with stormwater infrastructure projects. It's something that City Hall is doing a very good job at, and even the county. And we need to make sure we keep funding those through restore funding, through other forms of funding such as local option sales tax, and that we keep on the path to restoring our environment and reducing the impacts. Because neighborhoods like the Tan Yard, time's run out.
David.
This year, our city is going to spend the same amount of money as we did last year in stormwater revenues in terms of what we're going to use for stormwater management. That's $2.7 million. And that is just wholly inadequate for the needs of our stormwater infrastructure issues. I mean, just today, we had Government Street flooding up through the manholes, creating a problem all down Government Street, and it wasn't even hardly a rain event. I mean, we have serious issues. We have to put a pause button on development and deal with infrastructure and stormwater management. I mean, because this amount of money is not going to do the job. And we're going to have to come up with creative funding and grants to be able to spend the money that's necessary to improve our stormwater management, because we're going to be dealing with this for generations until we get very serious about dealing with this infrastructure issue with stormwater retention. I mean, it's going to take a lot of 1,000 cuts to do it, but we have to get serious about doing it and starting it now.
All right, so, and it sounds kind of funny having to phrase it like this, but we have to stop discriminating. We have to stop discriminating. The thing is, people in lower class areas are being discriminated against based on the infrastructure that is in place. So we can't focus on developing new areas and having new developers come in when the old system is failing. And we can't make progress in other areas, new areas, if our old system is failing. So in building the city's current infrastructure, utilizing what we have, so that way it is up to code. The thing is, there's not too many areas downtown that aren't going to flood, especially the closer you get to the bay. And resolving those issues is of utmost importance. So we can't start new projects until we're, like I believe said earlier, you can't focus on another area until you solve home. So we can't focus on having a new area without focusing on the problems that we've already created.
Yes, first of all, I think this is definitely not a situation that we need to oversimplify or think it. We're going to solve it in 90 to 120 days. But I like to think of it in terms of under the ground, on the ground, and above the ground, kind of a strategic plan. Of course, the underground components that I'm speaking of is our infrastructure. We've got some drainage issues where we're not returning at the right volume of water back into the ocean, if you would, and we got issues where it's not staying where we sent it, and it's bubbling back up above the surface. So we got to be very conscious about how do we fix that, and how do we deal with the on the ground, above the ground, whether we're talking retaining walls, whether we're talking building new homes on stilts and or platforms that are above the sea level, that it might help mitigate some of the problems when we're building at ground level. So 3-tier, underground, above the ground, and on the ground.
Well, certainly our stormwater infrastructure is going to be the main part. We've been spending, both the city and the county, significantly on that. We haven't solved those issues, but we continue to work them. I'm very proud to see outside money coming in. That's one of the greatest things about getting the Restore Act and the opportunity to have $100 million come in here and be able to fix some of these issues. And I look at two components that were put forward by the board. One of them was the Carpenter's Creek plan, and the other is the Hollis-Williams. Both of them are going to deal with stormwater and how we deal with attenuation in both improvements, not only just dealing with the attenuation, but also how do we make it in a way that does it in a way that we can also utilize it and create an amenity for ourselves. So I'm very proud of some of the plans that are there. The issue is going to be the implementation. The other issue is going to be, those are also coming from the county. You've heard all the things that were happening. And one of the things that is happening in the city, and if you look at the plan, what they put on there about climate change, is the need to partner and be able to work very well with the county as we move forward. Certainly, I think I bring a load of success in that opportunity and the ability to work successfully with the county to make these implementations what we need.
All right, now we're going to go to the audience. Got a couple of questions here. Pretty good questions. So, Grlver, I think I'm going to start with you first, since we haven't started with you first. So we'll go with you, and then Lawrence, then Mr. Green, and then we'll come back to David. Andrew, you'll begin. Okay? Okay, what can be done to quantify and educate everyone on the impact of water quality, pollution, recycling, and other environmental issues?
Well, I think the question was going to be earlier, what was our biggest thing that we were most proud of, since you asked everybody else, and I think this sort of fits into my issue. There are a lot of things I've been able to do, but I think really the best one that's going to be able to set us forward and begin to set the stage of really figuring out scientifically what we do for restoration and remediation, especially for our water bodies, is going to be the Pensacola and Bernito Bay Estuary Program. We are one of the few areas that we did not have one. Mobile Bay had one. I see Matt in the back. I know that from Tampa Bay, around Sarasota Bay, many other ones had it in Florida. But the opportunity for us to have that will really allow us to utilize and hire a director, hire scientists, and really begin to find the solutions that deal with all of not only our stormwater and our creeks, but our estuaries, and how we can do a better job of restoring seagrass. Certainly has worked for Tampa Bay Estuary, and I think we can do great things here in Pensacola and Bernito Bays as well.
Well, Donna, I think as a mayor and as a leader of our city, we have to figure out how do we integrate the stormwater issues and the rising of the sea issues into every fabric of agencies that we have that's planning the movement of our city forward. For example, we got the DIB, Downtown Improvement Board. We got our CRAs, Community Redevelopment Agencies, and many other myriad of organizations that meet within their own rights to discuss the economic development, the progression of our city moving forward. But oftentimes they're operating in separate entities without the integrated pieces. So I think we have to integrate it into all of those forms for one, and we have got to figure out how do we make it community friendly. DIB board meeting met this morning at 7:30. Really. I mean, if it's supposed to be a community-based board where we have buy-in and an opportunity to discuss the future and the fate of our city, we got to make them a little bit more community friendly.
All right, I call this the 3 E's: educate, enact, and enforce. If we educate properly our residents and enact ordinances to enforce what it is we're trying to educate our residents on. So for instance, an issue of recycling. Even with the scandal behind that set aside, we don't have proper enforcement, or we don't even have a proper ordinance to enforce recycling. So something as simple as having cameras installed on our recycling trucks and having it set up similar to, and really identical to the county, to where the first time you contaminate recycling, it's a warning. The second time is a warning. The third time they take your recycling bin, and if you want another trash can, you can have one. The importance of that is any contaminated recyclables that are taken have to go to the landfill at $55 a ton. So whether this was exposed or not, we don't have the proper teeth in our ordinance to be able to enforce something like this. So proper enforcement. Thank you.
And I believe the question was dealing with education for environmental issues. And I think our schools need to reassess, I believe. And I can remember in the 3rd grade coming home and identifying with labels on our light switches all around the house. I was planting these little labels because I was learning about energy conservation even in elementary school. And I think that our education system needs to seriously up its game in terms of the environmental consequences of our actions. And it starts in school, and I believe as we implement much more standards, environmental issues in our school level, it will go wonders for as we grow older and taking care of our environment when we get our education right in our own backyard, in our own elementary, middle schools, and high schools.
So again, on education, the biggest reason why the city did not have a contract with ECOA at our brand new recycling facility was because the city wasn't doing a great job at educating, messaging what you can and cannot recycle. And thankfully, because I blew the whistle on the cover up at City Hall, which we found out what that resulted in, we are recycling again. But the city needs to continue to do a better job at telling you what you can and cannot recycle. You know, because we have to become 75% to the point of recycling by 2020. More than that, I'd like to set up a composting program within the city to further reduce the waste we put on taxpayer resources in our landfills. And again, we need to talk about educating citizens on what they can do to help the environment, and whether that's through incentives, through promotions, or just telling them, hey, we can provide this service to you. We can pick up your compost and dump it somewhere else rather than put it in the landfill. I think that goes a long way at an individual level to a city level.
All right, now what I'm going to do with this last question is start with Lawrence, come down the line, and Mr. Green, you'll be the end. How about that? Okay. All right, what sources do you rely on when trying to understand climate science?
I would say the weatherman, but there's a myriad of things out there, Donna. In particular, you know, even the organization, national level organization, that Tidal town halls falls up under and operating or Buchanan. There's a ton of research that them guys are doing from a scientific standpoint as it relates to the natural concerns that we should have as it relates to the rise of our sea. And also the impact of the mix of not only the natural, but demand infused kinds of things that further impact that and multiply the problem. And of course, I mean, in this day of age, we've got smart folks out at the University of West Florida that are looking at these kind of things in the Marina Department, our IHMC doing some of the similar things in conjunction with some of the regional outfits, organizations rather, to include our military to do just that.
Well, and I'm very proud to say that some of the best people we have in environmental restoration and keeping things done are Escambia County employees. I see Matt Posner back there, Tim Day, Chip Skirchenfeld, Robert Turpin. They are some of the leaders that I listen to and work with and have worked with. They're very good people. But if I have to look outside, I certainly look at other people in the room. I see Lori here, Lori Murphy with Coast Keepers. I see Christian Wagley back there, who I know has been very involved with a number of different organizations in here. These are people that I haven't agreed with on every single thing. I know Christian and I have gone back and forth on some of our hardened living shorelines, but overall I think it's good discussion in what we're doing moving forward. These are people that I always bounce stuff off, and the good news is that county staff has also been contracted by the city the whole time I've been there. They also provide environmental services to the city. I certainly would look to that team to still be able to keep me posted on what's going forward and advising me on what I need to do to make the right decisions, not only for Pensacola, but really all of Northwest Florida.
So the question is, what sources do we rely on? So I want to say so much as important as what individual sources, as what's the consensus out there. The consortium of climatologists have said within 90% of them say There's man-made global warming and climate change. We're causing this to happen, and we need to acknowledge it. You don't get to say it's not happening, because it is. So beyond that, we've looked at the Gulf Islands National Seashore, and the Department of Interior have done multiple studies saying 42% of the footprint of Gulf Islands National Seashore on Santa Rosa Island will be at high vulnerability status by 2030. That means it could be underwater by 2030. And it's important that we listen to what they're saying. The reason why we have a ferry system is not because people just like to go on a ferry, it's because that road will be gone. And in the end, I think a great alternative would be to, instead of paying for a road to be repaved or resurfaced at $20, $25 million, we could also just make the ferry free, like it's done in other communities. They have led the way on this, and our local partners, which the city and the county, need to follow and listen to the facts, listen to the science.
Yeah, I'm not only a good listener, but I enjoy good reading, and certainly the Coastal Resilience, the Nature Conservancy, NOAA, all very good resources and sources for climate science, and not just necessarily dealing with the causes, but more importantly, the solutions and what we're going to do about this sea rise problem that it is happening, not going to happen, but it is happening. And so I think the emphasis on the solutions are great. Our flooding issues that we have, like I mentioned earlier, the infrastructure needs, rain gardens, bioswales, planter boxes that we can do in our city to mitigate some of the stormwater problems that will also be a great benefit to the city. But anyway, emphasizing the solutions and of course the good sources for the science is also very important. But let's get busy implementing the solutions and doing the proper planning for what Pensacola needs to deal with this rising tide and our stormwater problems. Mayor Mayo will get busy planning and getting it done.
Mr. Green, you're at the end, and when you're through speaking, if you gentlemen, we will, at the end, we'll pick your cards up and then we'll move to the next segment.
All right, thank you. So, sources to understand climate science. My sources are people. Science is the exploration of things by people. So, in being able to explore, being able to network with others who can inform me, who are experts on those arenas, but also educating myself. I do enjoy a good read. In law school, we had to read books cover to cover, and being able to be an informed just citizen of this world, but also resident of this community, being able to be knowledgeable, and oftentimes I don't like to be in a situation where I'm not knowledgeable of something, so if I hear of something, I want to go back and research it so I can speak knowledgeably on that topic in the future, but being able to network and have those sources available and not being afraid to ask, where can I find more resources to be able to educate myself on. And thank you.
Thank you so much, our mayoral candidates. Thank you.